Good evening, everyone. I'm P.J. O'Neill, serving as the branch chief for STEM training. Welcome to this month's Tech Talk, AUXPAD, How Auxiliary Paddling Can Help Your Scouting Programs. Tech Talks are sponsored by the U.S. Coast Guard, U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary, and the Boy Scouts of America Sea Scout program. Tech Talks are held on the fourth Tuesday of the month, but remember there is no Tech Talk in December due to busy holiday schedules. The next Tech Talk will be in January, on January 23rd, 2024. Just a reminder, this Tech Talk is being recorded and will be posted to both the Sea Scout and Aux Scout YouTube channels. Please subscribe to either channel and share the link with your shipmates, some that could not join in tonight. The recorded Tech Talks make for excellent training in your Sea Scout ship or auxiliary flotilla. So please like and subscribe to either YouTube channel so that you don't miss out on excellent on-demand training, and share with your shipmates. Tonight, I would like to welcome back and introduce our subject matter expert, Dr. Robin Pope. Robin Pope currently serves as the Deputy Director of the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary's Recreational Boating Safety Outreach Directorate. Dr. Pope has more than 3 decades of experience in paddling education. He holds the American Canoe Association's highest possible instructor ratings in both swiftwater rescue and whitewater kayaking, and was recently named a Legend of Paddling by the American Canoe Association. I'm happy to turn it over to Dr. Robin Pope.
PJ, thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And we will get started. So again, thanks to everybody for joining us tonight. Tonight, we're going to be speaking about the AUXPAD program, the Auxiliaries Paddlecraft Safety Outreach Program. And in the talk tonight, we'll a little bit about the overall AUXPAD program, focusing on why we are interested in paddlecraft safety, look at the AUXPAD mission. We'll then look at the individual components, and a shore component, and an on-water or a float component, and then close up with some discussion. But this program is also going to speak about how AUXPAD can relate to Sea Scouts. And so the first question that comes up is, why bother with paddling? Since Sea Scouts started, it has had a strong focus on sailing and more recently on power boating. There's been less of a focus on paddling, although recently we did add a number of pathways for Sea Scouts to be involved with paddling. But the question is really, why bother with paddling? And there are a lot of reasons. First, it's incredibly fun, but it's also accessible. We can go paddling nearly anywhere. If you want to launch a power boat or a sailboat, you need some facilities to do that. On the other hand, with a kayak, I can simply walk down a goat trail, put the boat in any place where water meets the shore, and can launch and go have fun. It's also flexible. If I have a sailboat, for example, the 20-foot sailboat that my ship used to own, we could hold 4 or 5 people at most. With 2 deep leadership, that meant 2 adults and 2 or at the most 3 scouts. So if we have 6 people, somebody has to stay ashore. With paddlecraft, we generally have 1 person per boat. So if we have 6 people, we bring 6 boats. If we have 10 people, we bring 10 boats. If we only have 2 people, we bring 2 boats. We can be flexible and make sure that we have enough craft for everybody that's going to be there, but also make sure that we have enough personnel to manage the vessels that are going to be on the water. It's also inexpensive. Maintenance costs for a plastic boat like you see here are essentially 0. I take that boat and I put it in my barn, and the next time I need it, it's ready to go. The fuel is the food that I'm going to eat for lunch, and the storage costs are negligible. Winterizing means I just cover the cockpit to make sure that no squirrels or raccoons or spiders get in there, and come spring, I can take it out and I'm ready to go. So lots of reasons that we want to have access to paddling. But again, coming back, it's an incredibly fun way to get on the water. And because it is only 1 person per boat in many cases, it means that every person is the captain of their own vessel. It gives lots of leadership, lots of decision-making opportunities, lots of opportunities for scouts and auxiliaries to grow. From a perspective, we've got some challenges with paddlecraft safety. We know that paddlers, and I'm going to define paddlers here as canoe, kayak, and stand-up paddleboard paddlers. They make up about 40% of the recreational boating population, and that's based on data from the Coast Guard's Recreational Boating Safety Survey that was last done in 2018. There's a new one that's scheduled to start next year. Data from the Outdoor Foundation shows that about 2/3 of the growth in the overall boating community is due to paddling. We see about a 1.6 million person growth in the boating community annually, and about 1 million of those are paddlers. And paddlers make up about 21% of overall boating deaths between 2010 and 2019. That may be less than our participation, but it's still a tragic number. And as a member of a boating safety organization, that's something that gets my attention. I want to do something about it. We see that between 2010 and 2022, fatalities in both kayaking and stand-up paddleboarding have shown significant increase, and there's a strong linear relationship between participation and significant injuries for paddlers. One of the reasons that we see this growth in significant injuries and fatalities as paddling participation increases is that even though paddlecraft are vessels subject to the same laws that power boats and sailboats are subject to, not every paddler knows that. And I speak as a paddler when I say that. Not every paddler has the mandatory education that teaches some of the laws that we have to follow. Now, the auxiliary has focused on powered craft, particularly power boats, that make up about 2/3 of the boating community, about 2/3 of boating fatalities, and about 55% of the boating community. But there are other boats out there. Vessel examiners in the auxiliary and in other programs may not be familiar with paddlecraft. And if you're not familiar with something, you tend to be not comfortable with it. So that means that people take a not in our wheelhouse attitude. But if we're talking about 40% of the boating community, we want to be able to reach out and engage them. One, to keep them safe, but two, to help people have fun on the water. So many recreational paddlers could be better prepared when they go boating. And there are a lot of reasons for that. First, unlike power boats, there's generally no education requirement for paddlers. You can go down to a store, buy a boat, and hop on the water. And there's no requirement that anybody that's doing that has any type of education. If you paddle in a club or in a Sea Scout ship or an auxiliary flotilla, then you are likely to have some type of instruction. And as an example, the Carolina Canoe Club, the club that I've been most involved with, in some years, 50% of their membership is involved in classes either as a student or as a safety boater or as an instructor. And if 50% of the community is involved in instruction, you can imagine it's a well-educated boating community. But unfortunately, not everybody has access or interest in doing that. There's also no minimum age. My son started paddling when he was 3 years old, but he had very strong supervision, and he was definitely wearing a life jacket in very controlled environments. Because there's no minimum age, though, if someone doesn't have that direct supervision, it's easy to get in trouble easily or quickly, and then be unable to help themselves. And one reason people might not be able to help themselves is because there's no mandatory life jacket wear for paddlers, so people can get on the water without wearing some critical safety equipment. So in the auxiliary and in Sea Scouts, we want to make sure that we match our skills and equipment to the conditions we're paddling in. We definitely want to make sure that we're wearing life jackets. We want to make sure that we have good communications about what we're doing, where we're going, and when we plan to come back. We want to make sure that we have effective trip planning so that we are avoiding hazards, but also taking steps to go to places that are fun. If we know that there is a beautiful waterfall, that there's wildlife, or that there is a spot where we can go surfing or otherwise play in the water, we want to make sure that we get to those spots and avoid problems. One of the problems that we can see is conflict with other boaters. As an example, if I go to a boat ramp and I put my kayak down on that boat ramp and then go do other stuff, that boat ramp's occupied. Someone else can't use it. They can't launch a power boat, which really restricts what other people can do, and that leads to conflicts. One way we deal with that is just recognize that even if I'm at a boat ramp as a paddler, I don't need to use the boat ramp. I can get in the water right next to it and reduce those conflicts. So thinking about those challenges, thinking about why we want to go paddling, we can think about the AUXPAD mission. And it's really threefold. The first is to promote life jacket wear. We know that life jacket wear is essentially the same thing as seatbelt wear. We don't want to have to use a seatbelt. We don't want to have a car crash when we're driving. But if we do, we really want to have that seatbelt on. And same thing with a life jacket. Some people don't like to wear life jackets. We can get ones that are much more comfortable. And certainly once you're used to wearing it, you're going to wear it all the time. But we want to make sure that people are wearing those life jackets and they're complying with other Coast Guard required equipment. We want to promote paddlecraft education and skills because we know that lack of education, lack of training, lack of mentorship is a significant contributing factor to paddling accidents and to all boating accidents. So the Sea Scouts and the Auxiliary both have memorandums of understanding with the American Canoe Association, the national governing body for Olympic paddle sports in the U.S., Olympic and Paralympic paddle sports. And working with our partnership, we are able to help provide educational materials, both ashore and on water. And then finally, we want to create opportunities for auxiliaries to develop and apply their paddling skills to achieve Coast Guard objectives. Because of the Aux Scout, we have lots of Sea Scouts that are involved in the auxiliary. So when we say auxiliarist, we're including Sea Scouts here. To understand the program, to understand a little bit of the history. And the AUXPAD history really kind of jumped to the forefront in 2011 when the Auxiliary and the American Canoe Association formed a memorandum of understanding that provided a framework for both organizations to work towards mutually beneficial goals. Essentially, the framework says that both the American Canoe Association and the Coast Guard Auxiliary are deeply interested in boating safety, and we can work together to help make boating safer and understand that safer boating is more fun. Some milestones since that original memorandum of understanding. In 2015 and then in 2018, Commandant instructions guiding the program were published. This year in 2023, we released a new AUXPAD handbook with updated and improved program standards designed to help auxiliaries better reach out to the paddling community, but also to improve the standards for training and development. In the early years, the program was very active in D5 South, but it has expanded since then and is in a number of districts in the Coast Guard. The training manual we use is the AUXPAD handbook, and that specifies a rigorous personal qualification standard that is similar to what's done for boat crew, but then incorporates paddling and rescue skills based on American Canoe Association's Level 2 curriculum. And Level 2 means that we're talking about wind speeds less than 10 knots, current less than 1 knot, and wave height less than 1 foot. In contrast, Level 5, the ACA's highest level, are small craft advisory conditions or Class 4 whitewater. So we in the ACA, we can go to much more challenging conditions. In the auxiliary and in Sea Scouts, we like to be a little bit more controlled. There's a physical fitness requirement. All AUXPAD participants have to be able to complete a 5-mile paddle and conduct in-water rescues. And it's, I think, important for people to understand that the AUXPAD program is one of the few programs in the auxiliary that actually require people to do in-water work. It's not just getting in a pool and demonstrating things. This is getting in the water, in venue, demonstrating your ability to rescue yourself and others after a capsize. One reason we can do that is because AUXPAD qualifiers, the equivalent of qualifying examiners for boat crew, have to be an ACA instructor. So they have to meet some very rigorous, internationally recognized standards to be able to teach this material and be able to demonstrate it to others. There are about 25,000 auxiliary members, and there are about 90, we've had a few increases since this slide was written, 90 to 100 people that are involved in the AUXPAD on-water team. So there aren't many of us, but we try to have a strong impact. And you can see that we're spread across a number of districts. We've got 2 regions with very well-established programs, and we are working aggressively to increase that level of training. This February, the AUXPAD program is offering an extended on-water training program in Florida intended to dramatically increase the number of qualifiers and paddlecraft operators within the program. So that's some history and background for the program. The next thing we're going to talk about is what do we do in the program? And it's really broken into two parts, the AUXPAD Ashore and AUXPAD Afloat program. AUXPAD Ashore focuses on what every other auxiliary program does ashore. We look at vessel safety checks, we do public affair events, public education, and program visitation events. And really all this is about building relationships and community partnerships, being able to reach out to the paddling community, give them some information that they need, help them have more fun on the water by staying safer on the water. The auxiliary has developed a number of resources and has access to resources from the American Canoe Association. I put into the chat a link to the B Directorate's AUXPAD page. There are all sorts of resources that are available there, as well as links to the American Canoe Association. I should say, throughout this slide, you're going to see some pictures of people. Here we see Joey Taguding. He's the branch chief for the AUXPAD Ashore program. So shore outreach programs are the foundation of the AUXPAD program because we saw that there are 90 or perhaps 100 people involved in an on-water program, which has some very significant training requirements. But anybody interested in helping paddlers can be involved in the ashore program. So that includes our vessels, our educators, public affair people, and it means we can do informal events as well as formal presentations. Many of these activities only require some basic familiarity with paddling, understanding that we need to be able to wear a life jacket. We need to have the life jacket on all the time when we're in the water, that we need to dress to swim, that we need to file a trip plan. Those are all things that most auxiliaries, most Sea Scouts can do, even if they don't know anything else about paddling. But we do things that do require some more specialized training. And one of those is just making sure that people have the equipment that they need. This is a list of equipment that can be obtained through the Auxiliary National Supply Center. The orange decals that are shown on here are really an important thing for people to have. We see year after year that there are boats, paddlecraft that are found adrift. And if your vessel is found adrift and there's no information on it, somebody's going to start a search. And whether that's the Coast Guard or local law enforcement, local fire and rescue, somebody is searching for that boat. On the other hand, if you have this if found sticker in there, they see your name, they see your contact information, and they call and you find out that your boat has disappeared and somebody has it and you can make an arrangement to get it back. That means you get your boat back. It means that we can avoid unnecessary searches. And again, a list of other things that are available through ANSC for anyone that wants to distribute this to paddlers. When we do public education, there's several programs that we can offer. The Auxiliaries Paddler's Guide to Safety was just updated this year in cooperation with the American Canoe Association. It's a really strong program. It's about 2 hours to go through and provide some fundamental information that will, again, help paddlers stay safer on the water and have more fun. The American Canoe Association has a similar program called the Paddle Sports Safety Facilitator. This provides a several-hour on-land program, and then facilitators, the people that would present this, are required to do some on-water training to demonstrate familiarity with canoes, kayaks, or stand-up paddleboards. And this isn't someone who's going to go out and be an on-water instructor. It teaches them instead how to do material on land, but it gives enough exposure to paddling so that you can give some firsthand discussion about how to get a boat to go in a straight line, what to do if your boat capsizes, because part of the facilitator requirement is to demonstrate a capsize and then an in-water reentry. Program visitation, going out and talking to dealers, talking to marinas, talking to people that are providing boats for other people to use. And we can give them information such as how to choose a correct life jacket, offering vessel safety checks, and then providing literature such as the Be Smart brochure that's shown here. Vessel safety checks are kind of integral to the Coast Guard Auxiliary Safety Program. And a vessel safety check is not a legal activity. It's not where we come in and examine your boat, and if you don't have everything you need, you get a ticket or a fine. Instead, it's an educational opportunity. When we do vessel safety checks, we want to make sure that people have the right boating equipment. And a big thing is making sure that they have a life jacket that's appropriate for what's going on, a life jacket that is well fitted, whether you're a person, an adult, a child, or a pet. The life jacket you have is the one that's right for you, and that you've chosen one that will help with you if you're in the water. So we see here a life jacket that is designed for paddlers. That might not be what I want to use for a power boat. Might not be what I want to use if I'm in open water, but it is appropriate for paddling in most conditions. And that's the type of things we talk about during vessel safety exams. We also might talk about what to bring if that paddler is looking at more challenging environments than just a simple calm environment. So things we might encourage you to take would be a paddle float. Circle that. The paddle float right here is something that we can attach to a paddle. And if you capsize and need to re-enter your boat, this can help you get back in. If you do capsize, your boat's going to be full of water. So having a pump, as shown in here, is a really nice thing to have. And having a spray skirt, such as shown here, whether a nylon one, which will just keep water out while you're upright, or a neoprene one that would actually allow you to do an Eskimo roll and come back up. Keeping water out of the cockpit will make you a lot more comfortable. Here we show a tow belt. So this is a belt that a paddler would wear, and if another boater needed help, you could actually connect the carabiner to that boat and then tow them to shore. And then a personal locator for someone that gets in trouble. Other things that we really emphasize are the importance of taking a class. Getting hands-on instruction, getting some experience really helps make sure that we have a safer, more fun opportunity on the water. We know that a large fraction of boating accidents happen to people who have less than 10 hours experience. So just taking a weekend class, getting 10 or 12 hours on the water makes you a dramatically safer boater. And you do that by taking an on-water class. Other things we might recommend, you'll hear me say several times, dress to swim. And I want you to think about that, meaning wear a life jacket, but don't just stop there. We've got a dry suit shown here for a person in some surf. The dry suit keeps you dry, keeps you warm, keeps you comfortable, even if the water is cold. Down here, we see an orange shirt, which is a high visibility shirt. If I'm in the water and somebody's looking for me, I'd like to have something that's bright and easily seen. This top little hook is an emergency cutting tool. We've seen people that are out get caught in fishing gear, get caught in abandoned lines. Having something like this allows us to escape without any risk to ourselves. And then anybody that has paddled long enough has either lost a paddle or broken a paddle. I've been on trips where paddles were broken, and having a breakdown paddle, as shown here, can be a really great thing to have to get you back to shore. The statement here, give your float plan to someone that loves you and wants you to come back. That's such a critical statement and something we really emphasize in the AUXPAD afloat, or excuse me, AUXPAD ashore program. It's not enough to just have good trip planning. You need to share that planning with other people with your float plan. And vessel safety checks give us an opportunity to talk about the components of a float plan and to really emphasize who that goes to, and a discussion of what to happen if you don't come back on time. Making sure that that's decided in advance will really help to ensure that you do come back, and that if you don't, somebody is there to help you out. In the Coast Guard Auxiliary, I don't think this will be a surprise to anybody, but we don't get paid. It's a volunteer organization. And in Sea Scouts, it's a volunteer organization. But we do have an opportunity to receive awards and recognition. And the recreational boating safety device is one of those opportunities for recognition. And there's a lot of opportunity within the AUXPAD Assure program to receive points towards the recreational boating safety device. So doing vessel safety exams will provide points toward it. Doing program visitations, talking to paddlecraft dealers will help with that. Doing legislative outreach. And there are things that involve paddlecraft safety that come up in federal and state legislation. And if you're involved in that, you should get those points. Public education, if you go out and teach an 8-hour class as a lead, that's 8 points towards your RBS device. And then public affairs, going out and speaking to the community, getting involved in publications, also can earn points to the device. So that's AUXPAD Ashore. That's what we do on land. But paddling is not an onshore event. It's really an on-water event. And the AUXPAD Afloat outreach program is an extension of what we do ashore. It places qualified auxiliary members in direct contact with recreational paddlers on the water in the environment where paddlers want to be. It provides an opportunity for us to build relationships, promote safe boating, and just get out and enjoy the water with the boating community. We see here Todd Wilkinson. He's the current branch chief for AUXPAD Afloat. You can see him in his kayak with his American Canoe Association sticker. And what his division is doing is really focused on building skills. We're doing that through our AUXPAD academies, instructional programs that help people become AUXPAD qualifiers and paddlecraft operators. Using that training to build credibility within the paddling community and to have fun while we're on the water. So AUXPAD Afloat, it's really outreach on the water. And you can see here examples of patrols that are going out on the water and interacting with other boaters. A couple things we see here. And we see one that it's not an AUXPAD program because we don't have stand-up paddleboards, but providing safety for what looks to be a race here. But if we look at these 3 slides, we see that each AUXPAD operator is wearing their life jacket. They're brightly colored so that they're easily seen on the water. They're paddling in at least groups of 2 so that they're there to help each other. They're setting an example for how other paddlers should act on the water. And we know one of the best ways to teach is through example. Some of the programs that we do partner with are Sea Scouts. And we can see here a group of Sea Scouts and auxiliary members learning how to paddle and then getting ready to go out and share time on the water. What type of operational requirements do we have? First, we have to be on the water with 2 people, or 2 or more people, and that can be 2 paddlecraft. It can be a paddlecraft and a powerboat, and hopefully it's more than 2 people. AUXPAD programs are only done during daylight hours. If you've ever paddled after dark, it is a frightening experience. You feel very small in a very big world, and we know that there are power boats out there. And it's hard to see paddlers in daylight. It's even harder to see them at night. So in the AUXPAD program, we stay ashore after dark. Visibility's got to be good, more than 3 nautical miles. And wind speeds have to be less than 15 knots with seas less than 1 foot and current less than 3 knots. So really calm, controlled environments. Our GAR score has to be done so that we have a good risk assessment. We need to have a 30-minute radio guard. And we need to stay within 1,000 yards of shore unless authorized to do elsewhere. The reason to be close to shore is if something happens, our ultimate safety point is to swim to shore. Just like boat crew, we request patrol orders, go through AUX 2, request those orders, and then complete a patrol order claim and close out those orders. Just like boat crew, paddlecraft can be offered as facilities for use. The boats that are authorized for use are kayaks, and we don't allow inflatable kayaks. We don't allow soft shell kayaks. We require a hard shell kayak, although it can be a sit on top, it can be a pedal drive, or it can be a tandem vessel. Right now, we don't do stand-up paddleboards, we don't do canoes, we don't do rowboats. But understanding that the facility offer is very similar to what's done for a powerboat. Clearly, we don't have requirements such as fire extinguishers and backfire arresters, but we have to have the same safety equipment that all other auxiliary facilities have to have. Big thing that we have to be able to do is communicate with each other. So the AUXPAD Afloat program has a requirement of 30-minute communications with our radio guard. That can be done by radio, it can be done by cell phone, it can be done by text-capable personal locator beacon, but it has to be done frequently to make sure that we do stay in contact with our radio guard. A couple of these slides mention that there is a recorded online seminar, and all of our online recorded seminars are available on the AUXPAD website. And again, the link to that is in the chat. The auxiliary is a uniform service. Sea Scout is a uniform program, and we do have required uniforms for AUXPAD programming. We can see Mr. Chakuding, the branch chief for AUXPAD Ashore, dressed here to go paddling in good conditions, and he's wearing a bright orange shirt, which is our core uniform item. In good conditions, when air and water temperature are greater than 65 degrees Fahrenheit, we wear short or long sleeve shirts and paddling pants. Once it starts to get colder, we have a lot more clothing to get on. And the reason is that paddlers, while we are boaters, are also swimmers who just periodically sit in boats. We do have to make the assumption that we're going to be getting in the water. We know we're going to be splashed. We know we're going to be wet. So we want to make sure that we are well prepared to get in water. And if the water's cold, we need to be prepared for that. We know that the definition of cold water is any water that's 70 degrees Fahrenheit or less. Once it gets down to 65 Fahrenheit, spending much time in it is very uncomfortable. We need to be dressed for that if we're going to do it. Also mentions on this slide that we require inherently buoyant life jackets. Inflatable life jackets and hybrid life jackets aren't acceptable. And again, that goes back to the recognition that we are going to be swimming in the water. We want to make sure that we have the ability to do that. On-water training. To be qualified as an AUXPAD operator is a big deal. It's typically a 2 to 3 day instructional block where we go through kayaking strokes and maneuvers. We go through rescues and towing. We do an extended paddle, talk about radio communications, and then use that as a way to talk about trip planning, group management, and risk mitigation and management. Because we know that we want to go out and have fun. We want to make a difference in the boating community, but we need to understand that risks do happen, accidents happen, and we need to be prepared for that. A big part of the instruction is fellowship. We want to go out and enjoy our time, so we build friends, we build community, and we share meals and lodging together. A big part of the program is being able to demonstrate that you can paddle. And we can see a typical course that's used here to demonstrate your paddle strokes. And you can see, I believe that is Roland McDevitt demonstrating some paddle strokes on the bottom. Being able to rescue yourself or to rescue others is an essential part of the AUXPAD program. And you can see here people practicing and demonstrating how to use a paddle float, that big yellow float attached to the paddle, as a brace to get back in the boat after a capsize. We know that if a large wave or wake from a kayak, or excuse me, wake from a powerboat hits us, we might end up in the water. So being able to get back in is a required component of the AUXPAD training program. Being able to navigate, being able to get from point A to point B, and having the physical fitness to do that safely is also part of it. So we do have a required 5-mile paddle, which includes some navigation drills, essentially being able to pick out your starting point, your midway points, and your ending point, and being able to paddle at 5 miles a day. And we end up doing things in a lot of different environments. We started out in very calm water. As we've worked with the American Canoe Association, we've moved to some more challenging conditions. And particularly as we support that training, you can see in the middle, a simulated kayak. It's a simulated rescue. The kayak is actually pinned, but that was put there deliberately. And we had groups that would go out and practice recovering that. In the bottom slide, we can see groups practicing rescues in moving water, accessing people and then recovering them. And we can see people getting ready for training on either side. So what do you do with AUXPAD in your area of operation, your area of responsibility, and with your Sea Scout ships? We see here members of Sea Scout Ship 957 getting ready for a training day on Fontana Lake in Western North Carolina. And a few things you notice there, they're in brightly colored life jackets. Everybody is ready to go, and we're in an appropriate venue. The water is calm, it's fairly protected. We don't see a lot of power boats around, so great opportunity to learn and have fun. So when we get started, the first thing to do is just recognize some core knowledge. Remember, we want to dress to swim. That starts with wearing a life jacket, but it also includes wearing the proper thermal protection. We want to start simple: calm water, calm winds, close to shore, just like you see in the picture, and seek some on-water instruction, because we can talk about boating all we want, but it's a totally different thing when you get in the kayak. Same as getting behind the helm of a powerboat and trying to come into a dock for the first time. The theory is great, but the practice, the application is what we really need to do. As you do this, recognize your limits, and certainly don't claim expertise you don't have, but do work to get that expertise. Vessel safety checks are a great place to start, because they're a great way to start a relationship with the paddling community. And if you're trying to introduce yourself to someone that doesn't necessarily need to speak to you, having an icebreaker is a great way to do that. So the If Found stickers that I mentioned earlier are a nice gift as an icebreaker. Whistles, which are available for about $1 a piece through Amazon and are going to be available through the ANSC later in this year, are great icebreakers to give to people and get the conversation started. Once the conversation is started, really focusing on the fun that you can have. Instead of talking about, do you have the required safety equipment, asking if they paddled in that area before, asking if they know some of the fun areas that you're familiar with, and if they don't, sharing how to get there is a great starting point. And from there, then you can think about how they're going to plan the trip to safely get there. And that might lead to things like asking, do you have a water bottle? And if we as scouts and auxiliaries have one, and the paddler we're speaking with doesn't, giving them a water bottle. That builds a relationship and gives them equipment that they need to have. When we look at vessel safety checks, again, remembering paddlers don't have easily ignored mechanical failures. If I have a big hole in my boat, I'm going to know about it. So focusing on mechanical failures isn't a great idea. Instead, we can focus on simple things that paddlers can do for more fun. So dressing to swim, but also recognizing that the sun is out and thinking about sun protection, thinking about communications. How are they going to talk to each other on the water? And do they have the required signaling equipment, at least having a whistle? Remembering that food is fuel. So having snacks and water before they get on the water is a great way to encourage some safe boating. Recognizing that swimming is part of paddling, and asking, have you thought about what to do if your boat capsizes? Can you get back in your boat? Have you practiced it in calm conditions so that you at least know that can be done? And certainly before in calm conditions before you get into more challenging venues. And then really emphasizing that paddling is more fun when you do it with friends. So make sure you've got a group on the water. Not only is it more fun, but it's a lot safer if there's somebody out there to help you. One of the sayings in a lot of outdoor education is that 1 person is a tragedy, 2 is a story, 3 or more is a rescue. So making sure that you're always boating with a group of at least 3 people will help you have more fun and be safer. Underway, if your program wants to start some underway components, it does require competent paddling skills because those paddlers are going to be setting an example, showing that paddlers who are real paddlers, who know what they're doing, dress to swim and carry the appropriate equipment. Reaching out to local clubs, schools, and individual paddling instructors is a great way to develop those skills and to build some partnerships, because we really do want to build a relationship with the paddling community. The paddling community is us. There's not a us versus them. The paddling community is part of the boating community. And if we're going to be a boating safety, a boating educational organization, we need to reach out to the paddlers. An example of how the auxiliary has done that is a program called Kayaking 101. It started 2 years ago in Tennessee. Last year, it was done in both North Carolina and Tennessee. It's a partnership between the Coast Guard Auxiliary, the American Canoe Association, North Carolina and Tennessee state parks, and then paddling clubs in North Carolina and Tennessee and outfitters in those states. In our 2023 program, we had roughly 300 students spread across more than 20 state parks. These people were given very low-cost paddling education by nationally certified instructors, and they received onshore instruction from auxiliary members and from ACA instructors, and then in-water instruction from ACA instructors. So this is an example of how we can bring people with different abilities, different skills together and help the paddling community develop the skills that they need to get on the water safely, which makes everybody happier. Because really what we're trying to do is have public interaction and build relationships with the paddling community. And you can see examples of that here. We do that on the water by setting an example as well as on shore. And the partnerships that we have really are essential to our success. Partnerships with the American Canoe Association, with Sea Scouts, and with youth programs in the auxiliary. So if you've liked what I've shown you, come join us. Get on the water with. Would love to have you on the water and would love to share what we know to help you have more fun. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions and have any discussion.
All right. Well, thank you for the excellent presentation, Dr. Pope. Before we get to questions, I do want to mention, for those tuning in tonight, if you missed out on September's Tech Talk, also by Dr. Pope, its title is The Trends in Recreational Boating Fatalities. Some of the information that Dr. Pope gave tonight, if you go back and watch that analysis of the national trends, and what causes the accidents and what type of watercraft, it'll really make a connection between what the AUXPAD is trying to do with boater safety and the realities that they are fighting. So I'm going to post that link to the Aux Scout YouTube channel, specifically to that Tech Talk, in the chat for everyone. Now, a few questions have come in. If you have questions, there's a question and answer, a Q&A function at the bottom of the Zoom window. It looks like 2 chat bubbles and it says Q&A. So if you do have a question, please post them there. Our first question tonight, I'm just going to read it out. My understanding is that the funding for the ACA/AUX literature printed ran out several years ago and is now limited to supplies on hand. Is that understanding correct?
Yes, most of the literature that ACA has passed out was grant funded. All of those brochures are available online and can be downloaded or sent to people as a PDF, but print is challenging right now.
Thanks. So that was from William Perry. Okay. Next question from Walter. Any advice for a sector trying to get AUXPAD started from scratch?
Yes. First, make sure that you've got buy-in from your Gold Side staff as well as from the auxiliary members, because the OTO is going to have some significant impact on getting this started. Then identify people within the sector that are knowledgeable, both members of the auxiliary and then members of the boating community that might be willing to help, former Coast Guard members. But really, I think the paddling community has a strong respect for the Coast Guard. And so just reaching out and saying, hey, we'd like to start some paddling programs. What can you do to help us? Looking at the link I provided to the AUXPAD information on the Directorate website, looking at some of those resources, and then starting small with the shore program, starting to do some vessel safety checks, speaking with local clubs, and maybe having a discussion about navigational exercises, sharing the expertise that the auxiliary has with people who want that information, but maybe don't have a way to get it. And then as you develop those relationships, perhaps going out with clubs, and this would not be under orders, this would have to be on your own time, but going out on clubs and doing some paddling trips, building those relationships, and from there building the staff that you would need to do on water programs if you wanted to. But really starting small and starting with what we already do well, doing the vessel safety checks and public education, using the Paddler's Guide to Safety class, and then expanding from there. And then the only other thing to add with that, the current national staff, Roland McDevitt, our division chief, Joey Taguting, the branch chief for ashore, and Todd Wilkinson, the branch chief for float, have all three had some strong successes in building up programs from scratch. And so reaching out to them, they'd be happy to provide you with additional information and guidance.
Okay, our next question comes from Bill. What is the rationale for designating on the water paddling to not be considered water time? I don't know if that needs clarification, Drew, Robin.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that.
So we'll go on to his next question.
Okay.
Any insight onto the Aux bringing back the kayak coxswain program and designation?
I'm not familiar with that, so I don't know that that's not something that's being discussed right now. It would really be, instead of a coxswain, it would be an AUXPAD qualifier.
Okay. We have a Sea Scouter question here. Can the AUXPAD program be engaged as part of Sea Scout events and programs to kickstart larger relationships?
Yes. Within the Aux Scout program, we don't allow Sea Scouts to be operators until they turn 17, but they can certainly go through the training, and that is a great way to kickstart training both for auxiliary members and for Sea Scouts. And even though a Sea Scout can't be an AUXPAD operator, they can certainly take all the steps that they would need for advancement within the Sea Scout program.
Okay, this is a little more specific from Don. I'm putting together a program for District 7.
Mm-hmm.
As far as facility and equipment requirements, is a maintenance procedure card found in the Aux data library showing an example of a SAR Type 5 PFD, the required PFD. It is different in the handbook.
Right. Within the AUXPAD handbook, the only requirement is that it be a paddling specific life jacket. So most of the life jackets that are actually issued through the auxiliary don't meet that standard. Certainly the life jacket that I was issued for boat crew is not something I would ever wear while paddling. So most people involved in AUXPAD purchase their own life jackets. The only requirement is color. It's got to be yellow, orange, or red, and there are lots of great life jackets that fit that color pattern. Chuck Hayes is the AUXPAD coordinator for D7, and he is working with our OTO to obtain some life jackets for the area. But if you've got questions about that specifically or about specific life jackets, feel free to contact me offline.
Okay. Bill had a clarification towards the water time.
Mm-hmm.
He's clarifying in a boat underway, mm-hmm. it's considered water time in Aux data too, but mm-hmm. underway in a kayak does not count towards underway water time.
Yeah. Okay.
And why? If you can speak to that.
I can speak to that. It is not currently considered, and nobody in the AUXPAD program is happy about that, and we're working to change it. Apparently that was an oversight when Aux Data 2 was corrected or was created, and we're aware of that and trying to fix it.
How much time is needed to complete the AUXPAD training for a Sea Scout?
Really the same as anybody else. To meet ACA's level 2 criteria typically takes 2 or 3 days. Having said that, it's 2 or 3 days, but I would really encourage people to get more experience than that before they try to go out on their own. We want to make sure that not only have you been exposed to the skills, but if you've had some time to grow and practice them. But to complete a level 2 course for someone who's never been in a kayak before, it's reasonable to expect that it would take 2 to 3 days.
Okay. I guess this is a little bit of a follow-up with the required type Ph.D. with the discrepancy. Do you have any advice on handling the gold side looking at the two different requirements?
Well, the AUXPAD handbook is the requirement. That is what Captain Glendy signed off on. That is the requirement.
Great.
So yeah, if they have a concern over that, certainly each district has its own requirements and can add to what's in the handbook, but that is the national requirement.
Okay. Good clarifying question here from Joyce R. Shore and on water, 2 different aux certs. And then for the certs, what are the annual requirements to maintain currency?
Okay. So for AUXPAD Assure, it is a branch, but it is not a certification. So anyone who is a vessel examiner can do vessel exams as part of the AUXPAD Assure program. Even someone who doesn't have any qualifications can still be involved in that, but there's no formal certification. For AUXPAD Afloat, the requirement is to pass or to complete the requirement PQS every 3 years. So there's really no annual certification requirement at this point. The belief is that if you do that every 3 years, then you are likely to maintain the skills.
Okay, great. It looks like I think we've got all the questions from the participants. We'll see if any more come in the last few minutes here. Area specific question. Douglas, how far into Virginia Piedmont does AUXPAD operations reach?
I don't know. I would have to reach out to Joey, who is doing work in that area. But if you'd like to make it go further, I'll be happy to help you get a unit going.
Anyway, to make the program grow.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for answering all of our questions, Dr. Pope. Even if there are answers we don't like to hear, particularly about on water time and AUXPAD 2, certainly understand that.
Yeah, it's not an answer I liked to give, but it's something that we're working on.
Absolutely. Well, I just want to thank you again for joining us in our Tech Talk program, Dr. Pope. Excellent presentation. As a reminder, this presentation is recorded and will be posted both to the Aux Scout YouTube channel and the Sea Scout YouTube channel. And I would like to close with thanking all of the participants tonight. On behalf of the Tech Talk team, that would be Branch Assistant Hiram Muscovy, Peter Sargent, and myself. I want to thank you for making the 2023 Tech Talk program such a success and passing the word to fellow auxiliarists, Sea Scouts, and adult Sea Scout leaders. We really look forward to seeing you again in 2024 for more excellent Tech Talks delivered by top-notch subject matter experts like Dr. Pope. So I wish everyone a safe and happy holiday season, and we'll see you in January.